My wife left me for her lover and they crashed in a car. After he died, she came back suddenly demanding I care for her. She could not believe my response at all. My wife shattered our marriage for another man. But the most shocking part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was the profound, unsettling relief that washed over me the second she admitted it. I never imagined where that relief would lead us. I can still feel the sticky silence in our kitchen that night, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound cutting through the thick tension. We both knew something was wrong, but neither of us wanted to say it out loud. I'm Ethan, and I never pictured myself as the guy who'd be telling this story. But here we are. In our marriage, I wasn't some grand romantic hero. I was the rock. The one who paid bills on time, fixed whatever broke, made sure we had food, clean towels, a working car. Stable. Reliable. The kind of husband who never forgot an anniversary or a birthday. For years, I genuinely believed that was enough. Olivia, my wife, seemed content with that setup, or so I thought. We had our routines, our systems, a life that looked perfect on paper. But somewhere, quietly, she started searching for something I just couldn't provide. That spark. That excitement. The electrifying newness you feel at the very beginning of a relationship. I started picking up on the changes about 6 months before everything imploded. She'd get back from the gym later. Her phone would buzz constantly with new messages, and she'd quickly swipe them away. Our easy conversations? They turned into pulling teeth. Look, I'm not the jealous type. I don't snoop through phones or demand explanations. But I'm not blind either. There were these new habits. Showering right after walking in the door. Dressing differently, even for quick errands. And the look in her eyes when she glanced at me, it was distant. Like her mind was miles away. I knew things were shifting. But I really didn't want to be the husband who manufactured drama out of thin air. The gym, of course, was where it all began. His name was Julian. One of those guys who just oozes confidence and charm. The type who instinctively knows how to make someone feel special, truly seen. I never actually met him back then. But I'd hear his name casually sprinkled into Olivia's stories. Julian suggested this new routine, or Julian knows this amazing smoothie place. I wasn't oblivious. I could absolutely read between the lines. But confronting it? That meant staring down something I just wasn't ready to deal with. Then came the night everything shattered. We were in the kitchen. She was scrolling on her phone, I was cleaning up after dinner, and the silence felt suffocating. I dried my hands on a towel, turned to her, and finally asked the question I'd been dodging for weeks, is there someone else? My voice was steady. No accusation, just a plain question that demanded an answer. She froze, her thumb hovering over the screen, then looked up. Her expression was unlike anything I'd ever seen, not really guilt, more like a strange mix of resignation and defiance. Yes, she said. Just that one word. Clean. Direct. Not a single apology attached. I nodded slowly, that bizarre relief washing over me once more. It's like, finally getting confirmation of what you've suspected is strangely easier than living in endless uncertainty. Then you need to make a choice, I told her, my voice still measured. I'm not living with ghosts in this house. I won't be your backup plan while you figure out what you want. She didn't argue. Didn't try to explain or justify. She just stood up, walked to our bedroom. I heard drawers open and close, the distinct sound of a suitcase being pulled from the closet. I stayed in the kitchen, completely unsure what else to do. A part of me, a small foolish part, expected her to come back, say she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to fix us. But that never happened. She packed methodically, just her essentials, leaving everything else for later. As she walked past me with her bags, she paused for a second. I'll come back for the rest of my things tomorrow, she mumbled, never meeting my eyes. And then, she was gone. The apartment felt different after she left. Not exactly empty, but somehow lighter. Like a huge weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been lifted. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't call her 100 times, begging her to come back. I just sat on the couch, processing everything. My first instinct wasn't to chase her, or fight for her. It was purely to protect myself from any more pain. That very night, I started separating our lives, practically. I went through our shared accounts, making a list of everything we needed to divide: bank accounts, subscriptions, utility bills, all the tedious infrastructure of a life together. I changed passwords on my accounts. Removed her access to anything she no longer needed. I even started a simple spreadsheet to track everything that needed settling. It wasn't vindictive, not at all. Just practical. That's how I've always dealt with problems, breaking them down into manageable steps. Over the next few days, Olivia sent a few texts asking about forgotten items or questions about bills. I responded with short, factual answers. Not cold. Not warm. Just neutral. My sister, Sarah, called me that first week, asking if I was okay. I told her honestly that I was. I'm not angry, I explained. I'm just done. There's a difference. Sarah understood me better than most. She knew I wasn't the type for grand gestures or seeking revenge. I was the type to quietly close doors and simply move on. Olivia moved in with Julian almost immediately. That told me everything I needed to know about how long this had really been going on. Mutual friends started reaching out, all that awkward heard what happened energy. I appreciated their concern, but I didn't want to rehash the details. What was there to say, really? My wife had picked excitement over stability, passion over partnership. And yeah, it stung. But honestly, it wasn't exactly a surprise. I'd felt her pulling away for months. I just hadn't wanted to admit it to myself. The weird thing about betrayal is, once the initial shock fades, you start seeing all the signs you either missed or actively ignored. I remembered nights she'd claimed to be too tired for intimacy, only to have endless energy texting someone else late into the night. Weekends when she suddenly had plans with friends I'd never once met. And the way she'd start little fights over nothing, almost as if she was trying to justify her actions by making me seem inadequate. None of it felt dramatic or obvious at the time. But looking back, the pattern was chillingly clear. Those first couple of weeks, I just reorganized my entire life without her. Moved furniture, trying to shift the energy of the apartment. Tossed things that reminded me too much of us. I built new routines, ones that belonged only to me. I wasn't wallowing. I wasn't spiraling. I was methodically rebuilding. Because that's what I do. I solve problems. I create systems. I move forward. And honestly, once I adjusted to the simple fact that she was gone, I started feeling better than I had in months. 3 weeks after Olivia walked out, I was at my desk, sifting through paperwork, when my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Olivia was in a car accident. Julian didn't make it. The words just sat there on my screen, my brain struggling to process. I wasn't happy. I wasn't relieved. I was just shocked. Numb, maybe. Any anger I'd felt toward Julian had long since faded into indifference. And now, he was just gone. Just like that. And Olivia was in the hospital. Sarah sent another message moments later, more details. They'd been driving late. Another car had run a red light. Julian was gone at the scene. Olivia was in serious condition, multiple injuries. I just sat there, staring at my phone, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to feel. A part of me knew the decent thing was sympathy, and yeah, I genuinely felt it. Nobody deserves that. But another part of me, the one that had spent the last 3 weeks piecing my life back together, processing that betrayal, that part knew this changed absolutely nothing between us. A tragedy doesn't just erase the choices people make. It doesn't rewind time or fix the damage. I texted Sarah back, asking which hospital. She told me she was already heading there. Someone needed to check on Olivia since her parents lived hours away and couldn't get there immediately. I appreciated that about my sister. She has a genuinely good heart, never letting personal feelings stop her from doing what's right. I told Sarah I wouldn't be going to the hospital myself. Not because I wanted Olivia to suffer alone, but because my presence there would just confuse everyone. I sent my well wishes through Sarah, and I truly meant them. But I also knew showing up would send the absolute wrong message, like I was reconsidering everything. And I wasn't. Over the next few days, Sarah kept me updated. Olivia had a broken leg, fractured ribs, a concussion. She'd need weeks of recovery, limited mobility. Doctors said she'd heal completely, but would need help with basic tasks. Her parents had arrived, managing the immediate crisis, medical decisions, insurance, all the chaos that follows something like that. I did feel bad for her. Truly. But I also had this strange, unwavering certainty my role in her life was absolutely finished. Sarah visited Olivia a few times, reporting back that she was devastated, not just physically, but emotionally, grieving Julian, while facing her new reality. I listened, said the appropriate things, but maintained my distance. Then, about 10 days after the incident, Sarah told me Olivia had been asking about me. Wanted to know if I'd be willing to talk. I thought about it for a whole day before responding. Finally, I told Sarah I'd meet Olivia once. Public place. Just a conversation, nothing more. We picked a coffee shop near the hospital, completely neutral territory. Somewhere neither of us had any memories attached. Olivia's mom helped her inside when I got there. I saw immediately how much the incident had taken out of her. She moved so carefully, clearly in pain, her leg in a cast, bruises still visible on her face and arms. I stood as she approached. Her mom shot me a look, half gratitude, half judgment, then left us alone. Olivia slowly settled into her chair, wincing as she adjusted her position. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. She told me she wanted to come home. That she needed help, couldn't do this alone. It wasn't a request. It was more a statement of fact, like, of course I'd take her back now that Julian was gone and she was hurt. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. There is no home anymore. Not for us together. My voice was gentle, but firm. I explained there was an apartment, there were addresses, but there was no home, not the way she meant it. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. Pure shock. She couldn't believe I was serious, pointing out she was hurt, she needed someone, reminding me I was her husband. That past tense hung heavy in the air. I gently reminded her, I was your husband when you left me for someone else. When you chose him over our marriage. When you moved into his place. When you built a new life that didn't include me. She started to cry, and I felt that old instinct, that pull to comfort her, to fix things. But I knew, deep down, giving in to that impulse would absolutely destroy me. I explained that this wasn't about punishment, or revenge, or making her suffer. I didn't want that. But I couldn't be the safety net she just fell back on because her other choice didn't work out. Olivia wiped her eyes, tried a different angle. Asking where she was supposed to go, what she was supposed to do, saying her parents couldn't care for her forever. The desperation in her voice was raw, and I understood it. But understanding someone's pain doesn't mean you're obligated to absorb it yourself. I told her, your parents are helping you now. That's what parents do. She had friends. She had resources. She'd figure it out, just like anyone figures out difficult situations. But I couldn't be that person for her anymore. She accused me of being cruel. Said I was abandoning her when she needed someone most. I let her say it. Because I knew, from her perspective, injured, grieving, scared, I probably did seem heartless. But I also knew that taking her back now would mean building on a foundation of obligation and guilt, not genuine reconciliation. And that's just not fair to anyone. I told her I genuinely hoped she'd heal completely. That she'd find whatever she was looking for in life. But I wouldn't be her solution to a problem that started when she made choices I wasn't a part of. The conversation circled for a while. Her trying every angle to make me reconsider. Me, holding my boundary as kindly as possible. Eventually, I could see she was physically and emotionally exhausted. I suggested we end it. Before we parted, I told her I'd handle the practicalities of our separation properly, fairly. I'll make sure you get everything that's yours. We'll divide things correctly, all of it transparent, so there's no confusion. I explained I wanted to do it officially, documented. So we both had closure. So we could both move forward. She just nodded weakly, probably too tired to argue anymore. Her mom came back to help her to the car. I watched them leave, feeling this strange mix of sadness and resolution. Like finally closing a book you never finished, but also knowing you'd never pick it up again. That night, I started planning how to handle the separation properly. I wasn't going to ghost her or make things difficult. But I also wasn't going to let guilt manipulate me into undoing all the progress I'd made. I decided everything needed to happen with witnesses, in a neutral space, with clear documentation of every decision. No private meetings where emotions could cloud judgment. No ambiguous conversations that could be misinterpreted later. I wanted clean lines, clear endings. Because that's the only way to truly move forward. Truthfully, I felt awful about her situation. A part of me kept questioning if I was doing the right thing. But every time I pictured taking her back, I saw the same nightmare playing out, me, her caretaker out of sheer obligation. Her, resenting me for not being Julian. Both of us trapped in a relationship held together by guilt, not love. That's not a marriage. That's a prison sentence for two people. What she truly needed was genuine care from people who chose to give it freely, not reluctant help from someone she'd already rejected. Her parents were there for her. They had the emotional capacity to help without the heavy baggage of betrayal tainting every interaction. I would have been helping her while constantly reliving the pain of her leaving. And that's just not sustainable for anyone. Sarah called me that evening, asking how it went. I told her simply that I'd held my ground. That I was going to make sure everything was handled the right way, with respect, but also with boundaries. My sister was quiet for a moment. Then she said she was proud of me. That it couldn't have been easy, but I was doing what I needed to do for my own well-being. That validation meant more to me than she'll ever know. Because in moments like those, you really need someone to confirm you're not crazy for protecting yourself. The next few days were quiet. I used that time to prepare for the final separation. Gathering documents. Organizing our shared assets. Creating a clear plan for how everything would be divided. I pulled out that spreadsheet I'd started the night she left and filled in all the details, adding receipts, highlighting discrepancies, making sure absolutely everything was accounted for. This wasn't about being petty. This was about being thorough. About ensuring we could both walk away with a crystal clear understanding of where things stood. 2 weeks after that coffee shop meeting, I sent Olivia a message through Sarah with a date, time, and location, the community room in my apartment building, a Saturday afternoon. I told her to bring anyone she wanted for support. This was going to be a proper, witness separation of our lives, everything documented, transparent. She probably thought I was being dramatic or cold. But I knew exactly what I was doing. Creating a situation where emotions couldn't possibly override facts. Where there'd be zero confusion about what was said or agreed upon. I spent the days leading up to that meeting organizing everything meticulously. I had folders bursting with bank statements, receipts, documents for every single shared expense from our marriage. All separated into clear categories. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was trying to close this chapter of my life in a way that left absolutely no loose ends, no reason for us to contact each other months later over some forgotten detail. I also packed up all of Olivia's remaining belongings, clothes, personal items, photos, small things she'd collected over the years. Everything went into neatly labeled boxes and bags, organized and ready to hand over. The morning of the meeting, I got to the community room early and set everything up like a business presentation. Boxes stacked neatly along one wall. Folders of documents on the table. I even brought a laptop, just in case we needed to reference anything digital. Sarah arrived first, offering her support, and I appreciated her presence more than words could say. A friend named Mike also showed up, someone who'd known both Olivia and me during our marriage. He sat quietly in the corner, a neutral observer. Olivia arrived about 10 minutes late, her mom helping her navigate, her legs still in a cast. She looked around the room with this expression of disbelief, like she couldn't fathom why I'd turned this into such a production. Her mom looked visibly uncomfortable, likely sensing this wasn't going to be the emotional reconciliation Olivia might have hoped for. I gestured for them to sit, and once everyone was settled, I began walking through everything, systematically. I started with the easy stuff, returning her personal belongings. Going through each box, confirming she had everything she needed. Olivia just nodded, not saying much, maybe still processing the sheer formality of it all. Then, I moved on to the financial documents. And this is where it got complicated. I'd created a detailed breakdown of our shared accounts, every deposit, every withdrawal from the past year. I calmly explained that I'd divided everything 50-50ths for legitimate shared expenses, rent, utilities, groceries, things we'd both benefited from during our marriage. Olivia seemed fine with that part, even relieved I was being fair. But then I pulled out a separate folder, and I watched her tense up. I'd gone through our credit card statements, our bank records, from the months before she left. I'd identified expenses clearly related to her relationship with Julian. Hotel rooms. Dinners at restaurants we'd never visited together. Gifts I knew weren't for me. Even a weekend trip she'd claimed was for work. I'd highlighted every single one, added them up, and calculated her share of what had been spent from our joint accounts. This isn't about revenge, I said, my voice steady, factual. I explained these were expenses from money we'd both contributed, used for a relationship that excluded me entirely. And I wanted to be reimbursed for my portion. The room went silent. Olivia's mom started to object, saying I was being petty, vindictive. But I calmly explained I was simply asking for what was fair. If Olivia had used her own money for those expenses, I wouldn't have said a word. But she'd used our shared resources for something that benefited only her and someone else. Olivia looked like she wanted to disappear. But she didn't argue the facts, they were right there, black and white. I told her I didn't need the money immediately, we could set up a payment plan. But it had to be acknowledged, it had to be settled. Then came the part one knew would hurt the most, but it was absolutely necessary. I brought paperwork, officially removing myself as her emergency contact on everything. Medical forms, insurance documents, bank accounts, anywhere my name appeared as the person to call in a crisis. I slid the papers across the table. I explained I was giving her 3 months to transition everything. During those 3 months, I'd maintain some basic support connections, just to give her time to reorganize. But after that, I needed to be completely separated from any obligation to her. Olivia's eyes welled with tears. She quietly asked how I could just cut her off like this. How I could be so cold when she was still recovering. I took a breath, trying to make her understand without being cruel. I explained that being someone's emergency contact, their backup plan, the person they fall back on, that's a choice. Not an obligation. It requires trust. Mutual commitment. I told her I couldn't be that person for her anymore. Not because I hated her or wanted her to suffer, but because every time my phone rang with her name on it, I'd be reliving the betrayal, wondering if she was calling because she actually needed me or because everyone else had said no first. I told her she had parents who loved her, friends who cared for her. She needed to build a support system with people who weren't carrying the weight of what had happened between us. Mike spoke up then, carefully. He mentioned he'd seen Olivia around town a few times during her time with Julian. She'd seemed genuinely happy with her new direction. He said it gently, without judgment. But the implication was crystal clear: she'd made her choice, committed to it, and now she was trying to reverse course only because circumstances had changed. It wasn't meant to be cruel. Just to provide the context everyone in that room was thinking, but no one dared to say. Olivia couldn't really argue with Mike's observation. Her mom tried to defend her, saying people make mistakes and deserve second chances. I agreed with that principle, generally. But I explained a second chance has to be wanted for the right reasons, not just grabbed out of desperation or fear of being alone. We spent the next hour on the remaining details, dividing furniture, settling final utility bills, discussing the timeline for the legal finalization of our separation. I'd already consulted with a lawyer. Since Olivia had left voluntarily and the circumstances were clear, things were relatively straightforward. No kids. No complicated assets. Just two people untangling their lives. Before Olivia left, she asked me one last time if I was sure about this. If any part of me could forgive what happened and try again. I looked at her and felt nothing but exhausted sympathy. I do forgive you, I said quietly. And I meant it. I explained that forgiveness doesn't mean pretending something didn't happen, or putting yourself back into a situation that already hurt you once. I told her I genuinely hoped she healed completely. That she found whatever she was looking for. That she built a good life for herself. But that life? It couldn't include me. Not anymore. Sarah helped Olivia and her mom carry the boxes out to their car. Mike stayed behind with me as we cleaned up the community room. He told me he thought I'd handled everything with more grace than most people could manage. That holding boundaries doesn't make someone heartless, it makes them sane. After everyone left, I walked back to my apartment. And I felt this profound sense of relief. Like I'd finally put down something heavy I'd been carrying for months. The next few weeks were quiet, focused on legally finalizing everything, tying up every last loose end. Olivia sent a few messages through Sarah, mostly logistical questions. I answered them politely, briefly. I didn't engage emotionally. Just provided the info she needed and moved on. About 2 months after that meeting, I met someone new. Her name was Chloe. And she was different from Olivia in almost every way. Calm. Steady. Interested in building something real, not chasing fleeting excitement. We took things slowly. I was honest with her about what I'd been through, and she appreciated that honesty. Life started feeling normal again. Not the old normal, but a new normal that actually felt so much healthier. I heard through mutual friends that Olivia had temporarily moved in with her parents, working on getting back on her feet. I didn't follow up. Didn't ask for details. Her life was no longer my concern. I'd given her a fair separation. Handled everything with as much dignity as I could. And now, we were both truly free to move forward. Looking back, I don't regret holding my boundary. I never wished her harm. I realized one day, talking with Chloe about the whole situation, I just wasn't her safety net anymore. Because being someone's safety net is a choice, not a debt you owe. And I'd already paid everything I owed to that marriage. Was I wrong to hold my ground?